Hello everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I'm Siobhan and I'm the chair of Accessible Belper. The accessible training videos that follow are what we have provided face-to-face for Belper services and community groups for the last few years. This short session aims to raise awareness of the barriers met by those of us with disabling conditions throughout our town and what you can do about them. I must stress that this short session only aims to be an introduction to these issues, and you have an opportunity to find out much more from the training that other organisations supply. For instance, Accessible Derbyshire, or the online tutorials that Mike from Purple Tuesday provides on YouTube. Okay, so let's kick this off with exercise 1. In front of you, you should have a list of disabling conditions that can impact on a person being able to take advantage of all that our town has to offer. Now this is a very quick round and you only have 1 minute to put these conditions in an order which demonstrates their similarities. Okay, go. Stop. So, take a look at your lists and what information led you to order them in that way. Feedback I've had from other groups includes, well, this condition causes mobility difficulties, or this can cause hearing difficulties, or, well, I've never heard of this, I don't know what it is. Don't worry, this was a trick exercise. All these conditions have one thing in common, and that is other people's attitude, how they treat them. Always remember, look beyond the difference. You can empower other people with your attitude. So, we can move on to exercise 2. Don't worry, there's no tricks in this one. When we all first meet people, we naturally try to find social similarities and common experiences that we can share. In front of you, you have a picture of me. I've tried to pick a decent one because I'm very vain and I really don't want to scare you. I'd like you to guess, what can I actually do? And what might we have in common? Please answer yes or no to each of these questions. And you have me to answer to. So take a look at the questions in front of you. Okay, question 1. Is she married? Well, yes, I am. Does she have children? Yes, I have one daughter. Does she work? What do you think of as work? Yes, I worked. I worked as a careers advisor and a welfare advisor, and since I've retired, I've worked full-time voluntarily on different projects, the latest one being Accessible Belper. Was she born like that? No, my disabled journey began 20 years ago when I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So I wasn't born like that. But many people you meet with disabling conditions will have been, and their journey will have been very different. What level of education do you think I have? Well, the fact is I've been very lucky, and I have postgraduate degrees. How old is she? Now this is where you have to be very kind, because I'm actually 52, and I bet you guessed older. But one way or another, we'll have had a lot of experiences that we can share. Could she be a mentor for Sporting Futures? Well, yeah, I did all the training, but believe it or not, because I can't get out and about, they can't find me a mentee. Can she indoor skydive? Believe me, this adrenaline junkie can indoor skydive. Could I get on a train at Belper? Local knowledge here, people. Yes, I could. It's all accessible. Could I go to a performance at the British Legion with my granddad? Well, I could if I rang in advance, because they say they have a ramp. But the fact is they haven't got a hearing loop, and he's got hearing loss. So not a hope. Can I get on a train at Duffield? Not a hope, guys, I'm afraid. Totally inaccessible. Can I get on a bus to Derby from where I live in Belper? Well, the fact is I can, and everyone pretty much knows that. So many of our buses are accessible. But I can't go into town with my mate Kalichi, because she's also a wheelchair user, and they don't let 2 of us on at a time, you know. These are all things for thinking about. Can I go for a coffee in a little local coffee shop with flat access? Well, if I was going on my own, probably could. But if I went with my friend Mary, not a hope. Everywhere you go's got these really noisy coffee machines. Gorgeous coffee. But she has hearing loss, and she hasn't got a hope of hearing our conversation if we're in one of those. So let's speed this up. Can I go to the cinema in Belper? No, they've tried to make it accessible and they can't. Can I go to Time and Again on King Street? Beautiful shop. And they've now got ramps, so if I let them know in advance, they'll get them out for me. Is there a hotel or guest house I can stay at in Belper? No, because none of them are accessible, I'm afraid. Could I get popped to the loo in the Houses of Parliament? Believe it or not, yes I could, because they've got a changing places toilet, and I know because I've been there. Can I go fishing on the Lady Bower Reservoir? Yes I can, they've got an accessible boat. And finally, Can I take my mum, who's got mild dementia, to a food festival in Belper? Yes, I can. Proud to say that they have slow shopping at the beginning of each of those. So it's half an hour where people can make a choice to go there while it's nice and quiet. So we're on a winner. The town is changing and there are places that we can go. And you just have to work out your own local knowledge to see the places you can take and the places you need to ask whether they can change to make a bit more accessibility. Okay, but believe me, you are now Accessible Belper. So next, you've got our language activity. For those people you can communicate with, always remember just how powerful language is. I'd like you to fill in the blank spaces on the exercise sheet in front of you with more up-to-date, positive language for the conditions listed. So I'll give you a few minutes to do that. Okay, so in the left-hand column, you've got terms that are still sometimes unfortunately used. So your first one is the disabled, invalid, cripple or handicapped, which is very common in America and acceptable. Let's change it to disabled people. We're not all the same, you know. We're not a homogenous group. And if you think about invalid, it's invalid, has no value. Handicapped, cap in hand, stick them outside the front door because nothing else they can do, and they can do a bit of begging. Retarded is your second one. Come on, let's move on. That's a person with learning difficulties. Or suffers from your next one. Tell you what, we all live with these conditions. You know, state the medical condition. I live with multiple sclerosis. We don't necessarily suffer from them. That's negative. Mentally handicapped is another term totally out of date. People with learning difficulties. The deaf, again, like the disabled, they are not one group. They are deaf people or people that are hard of hearing or maybe hearing impaired group of people, but they're certainly all very different. The blind, again, blind people, partially sighted, visually impaired, they're all much more positive. Think about disabled toilet. It's not a disabled toilet, it's an accessible toilet. If it was a disabled toilet, it might need some help itself. Disabled parking, again, it's blue badge parking, it's accessible parking. Disabled entrance, it's an accessible entrance. Stop labelling things so negatively. Next one you've got is wheelchair bound. I'm not wheelchair bound. That'd be like saying you were car bound. You're a car user, aren't you? So you're a wheelchair user. Gets you from A to B. And that final one is to have a think about all those terms that were so common. He's mentally ill. He's crazy. They're mental health issues. And be careful who you're speaking to. You don't know what they've been through, what they've lived with, and how they're managing it. So with all of that, you're trying to turn a negative into positive. Always be aware of your audience. Think before you speak. Language is powerful. Remember what Tim Minchin said. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can break my heart. So there's a lot to think about there. And what you also need to think about is, the medical models of disability and the social models. They're very different things. And that's where so much of the ethos behind this training comes from. So the medical model of disability defines disabled people by the impairments they may have. It focuses on functional impairments. It responds to disability as a personal tragedy. And it will look after us, but it also ensures that perhaps you have an isolated or a segregated lifestyle. The social model of disability was framed about 30 years ago, and although one of the founders was in Derbyshire, it became a worldwide movement. And it was to take action against discrimination. It framed the problems of disability in social terms rather than viewing disabled people as the problem. And it enables us to define specific areas for change. And to do that, you talk about the 7 needs of disabled people and what they need for living in an inclusive society. That clock's going to take away all my emphasis here. For us to be able to participate in ordinary activities, we need, and I'll work my way through my day for this, personal assistance, number 1. Without a PA or a carer, I can't even get out of bed. I can't move from the neck downwards. So I'm always going to need that help. But I tell you what, there'd be difficulty getting out of my bed without some equipment to help. And that's the second need. So save your back and you can use a hoist, and that lifts me out. And I tell you what, my house is totally kitted out. From that hoist that lifts me out of bed, to the shower chair, to windows I can open just from a button on my computer, or even now using eye gaze to work my computer. It's not like I can type it in. We also want ordinary housing We don't want to live a segregated lifestyle. We want to live with everyone else, every generation. We don't want to stay in the house all the time. So we need accessible transport to get us out and to get us around this town that we can use and take advantage of everything it has to offer. And I tell you what, with accessible transport, it's not just physical things, the attitude of the staff. We need access to the built environment when we get out there. If we get out there and we can't get into shops, and we can't get into cafes, and we can't get into banks or public buildings, it's no good to us, is it? And I tell you what, we're on to number 6, which is perhaps where I should have started, because with any disabled journey, whether it starts at birth or you get hit with it in the middle of your life, you need information and advice to get you through to the right people to help. And some of us will have good days and some of us will have bad days. And that takes us on to the 7th need, which is peer support and counselling. And we really need that, because you need to talk to people. You need to keep talking to people on the good days and the bad, and get all the support and help that is out there. And usually from people who've been through it themselves, which is where the peer support comes in. So, if you're still with me, we're cooking with gas and we're on to exercise 3. Now, exercise 3 is designed to demonstrate that there's also a business case for the accessibility argument. It's not just ethical. And so we'll talk through the worksheet in front of you and the statistics that back up that for businesses there's a benefit to becoming accessible. Okay, thanks for staying with me so far. Let's take a look at this sheet. So your first question is, what percentage of disabled customers took their customers elsewhere to a more accessible competitor? Well, believe it or not, that was 83%, because one way or another, it's just not worth persevering sometimes. And question 2 is, on average, how many customers do you think out of 5 are likely to be disabled? Have a think about it. It's 1 out of 5. And in Belper, that equates to over 5,000 people. So it makes a heck of a difference. Across the UK, how many disabled people comprise the disabled market, the consumer market? Well, this is 12.6 million, and some of them are going to have some disposable income. What do you think it's worth to the market per annum? Okay, well, at the moment, that's £80 billion to the market. And if you then add on the fact that they are going to be out and about or using their disabled income with their family, with their friends, that then adds up to 212 billion. I mean, let's face it, they're not going to want to go on holiday on their own. They're going to want to go on holiday with people. and that means all of their disabled income. So as we get older, we are more likely to get a disabling condition. So what percentage of 50 to 65-year-olds have a disability? They might not class it as a disability. They might just class it as old age. But let's face it, it causes barriers. And that's 33% of them. Okay, so we're now on to question 6. We're all used to the logo, the picture, that, if you're disabled, you must use a wheelchair, because that's what the sign says. Well, what percentage of disabled people are wheelchair users in real life? It's less than 8%. What percentage of disabled people do you think choose businesses where they receive a good service, where they know they can go back time and again? That's 66% of them. They are your returners. They are the people you want to hang on to. And then question 8, what percentage of disabled customers don't complain about the poor services they've received? Well, you'd think everyone would complain. That's what we do. Well, to be quite honest, not that many of them do. But over a third don't complain because they just haven't got the energy. And you could complain time and again. I've had 20 years. I could wallpaper the house in the letters I've written over that time. But eventually you just start giving up. What percentage of disabled people do you think use the internet? Let's face it, it's a lot easier. And in the current climate, if we're just disabled people, it's actually 71% because it's so much easier and you don't have to try and traverse all those barriers that can stop you getting around. So where are we, guys? I think that was the end of that exercise, but it doesn't half show you how much benefit as a business you could get out of it. There's so much more that businesses can do at all levels. Just take a look at our town and have a think about the small measures that people could take that would improve their accessibility. It's not all about ramps. So we've discussed the ethical argument. Now we've moved on to the economic argument, and the national statistics. But have a think about those small measures. Number 1, all staff can take part in this free training and raise their awareness. Number 2, dead simple, provide an appropriate rest chair for customers. One with arms, one that's easy to get out of. Give time and space and appropriate assistance at the tills. Not everyone can get their money out quickly. Not everyone can get a card out quickly. Just take a little time. Ensure that everyone knows what the sunflower badge means. It's a sign that a person has a hidden disability and may just need a little bit more patience or understanding. Ensure that all your staff know what it means. Maybe even give them out in your shop for people who need them. And finally, what about accepting in your shop the need to go cards? These are taken all over Europe, for those who have bladder or bowel difficulties, which can really interfere with their shopping or leisure enjoyment. And it just means that if you show your card, yes, you are welcome to use their bathroom facilities. You can also be part of the Safe Place scheme in Belper. This means that your shop or business is willing to give a refuge to people who are lost or anxious until the appropriate support can help. So it's really simple. You could even just provide free water supplies. So that was our business case. Exercise 4 is a dementia quiz. I love the fact that after all this time, you're still prepared to put up with me. Since Accessible Belper began, we've partnered with Alzheimer's UK when we provide our awareness raising. Because in Belper, we have a community that are getting older. This is thanks to the success of our wonderful NHS. We're all living longer. And unfortunately, we're living longer. There seems to be a growing fear of dementia. Alzheimer's UK provide a brilliant training called Dementia Friends, which we usually run in conjunction with our disability awareness. So today I'd like to give you a brief introduction to Dementia Friends that you can follow up for more information on the web in your own time. So, to get us started, what's the first word that pops into your head when you hear the word dementia? Have a think. You've done nothing wrong by raising negative words. But, like we talked about in language, the negative associations reflect how society views dementia and shows how important it is that we work to change perceptions and address the fear and stigma in our society. So let's run through some key messages. On the card in front of you, you've got blanks for sentences that I'd like you to have a go at filling in. So the first one is dementia is not a natural part of blank. And the word you want to put there is aging. Dementia is not a natural part of aging. What do you think we mean by this? Not everyone who grows old is going to get dementia. Not everyone who develops dementia is old. People can get it in their 20s, although this is rare. Number 2 on your card is dementia is caused by blanks of the brain. Diseases. Dementia is caused by diseases of the brain, like with any organ in the body. You know, you can get kidney disease, liver disease, and this is what happens to your brain. Just imagine that your brain's a collection of thousands of fairy lights, each representing a memory, a skill, or a function of the brain. Now, imagine that dementia is making those lights flicker every now and again, dim, or even switch off completely. For each person, this will happen at different times. and each light will be affected at different times. So, just like with other diseases, a healthy lifestyle, stimulation, regular exercise, balanced diet, not smoking, it's good for your heart, so it's good for your head. Try and keep that up. Number 3, dementia is not just about blank. Losing your memory. Okay, it's what everyone immediately thinks, isn't it? Think about your fairy lights from earlier. Other than memory, what functions does the brain control? What could be affected by dementia? Well, communication, forgetting words or using the wrong words. Motor skills, being able to use a knife and a fork. Sequencing difficulties with performing a task. Putting on 2 jumpers or your trousers back to front. Changes in inhibition. Used to be really quiet, shy, but now it's really outgoing. Vision, judging distances. As any fairy light can be affected, any function of the brain can be affected. Number 4, it is possible to blank with dementia. That's live well. People with dementia might still be able to work, drive, have relationships. What they can do and how long they can do it for will depend on their particular type of circumstances. Living well will mean different things for different people. It doesn't necessarily mean it won't bring a challenge, but it is still possible to live well with dementia. So what do you think a person needs in order to live well with dementia? They need a bit of support. They need understanding. And we can all provide that. Finally, there's blank to the person than the dementia. There's more to that person, isn't there, than dementia? Think about their whole life. In the same way as we'd look at someone with cancer or diabetes, see the person first, we're looking beyond the difference. What does a person with dementia look like? They look just like you and me. They've had a full life and they've got loads to tell you. Finally, to find your understanding of dementia, I know what I found the best way of describing it was what they call the bookcase analogy. I want you to picture me as an 80-year-old woman. On the one side of me, there's a bookcase that holds all the factual memories from my life. On the top shelf is a fact for everything I've done that day. What I had for breakfast, how I got dressed, who I talked to while I had breakfast. On the next shelf is what I did yesterday. The next shelf is 20 years ago, when I was in my 60s and I'd retired. I was maybe looking after the grandchildren. The next shelf is when I was in my 40s and I was working and I'd just been promoted. The next shelf's my 20s. Oh, I was looking after the kids. I was running here, there and everywhere. I was working as well. And the shelf below that, right near the bottom, is me growing up as a little kid in school and all the things I used to do. So that bookshelf, it's a bit rubbish. It's made by MDF and it's a bit awkward. Dementia starts shaking it, and when it shakes it, what do you think's going to fall off first? It's those facts that are on the top shelf. What I had for breakfast, what I did yesterday, they're all going to come off. I might remember what I was doing 30, 40 years ago. In fact, right now I've got to get out and pick up the kids. They're at school, they're waiting for me. Or if you ask me, who was my favourite teacher? I can tell you all about it. Okay, so that's that bookcase. It's rubbish, it's falling apart. On this side, I've got another bookcase which holds all the emotional memories of my life. So, top shelf's just what I had for breakfast this morning. It was quite nice. Yesterday, went out with my daughter, had an ice cream. It was a lovely day. Can't remember what we did, I just know we really enjoyed it. Go to pick up the kids. Got to get there quick. They need their tea. 30, 40 years ago. Or if you ask me about that teacher 60 years ago, get a really warm feeling because they were great at really getting me interested in history. And I just loved listening to their stories. They're never going to fall off. That's a much sturdier bookcase. I'm going to hold on to those feelings. It's really important that you keep them coming. So just remember that. Got that rubbish bookcase. It's not that important. The emotional one's the one I hang on to. Finally then, guys, this is your conclusion. You've stayed the course. Well done for your perseverance. I hope you've enjoyed this gift of understanding and experience. In front of you, there should be an information sheet from the Disabled People's Charity Scope. They're determined to end the awkward, the culture that can surround the disabled people's community. You now have time to look through this at your own leisure. I hope that after today's Accessible Belper awareness session, you've gained an appreciation of the vitally important role that you have in continuing a culture of disability awareness. Everybody's attitude is that starting point for an understanding environment. Never forget the power of language. If you're not sure, don't say it. Always try turning those negatives into positives. Although there's an essential ethical argument for accessibility, there's also that powerful economic argument that demonstrates the business argument for everyone. Partnership working, along with constantly listening to the needs of our community, is the only positive way forward to ensure that everyone can take advantage of our wonderful town and beyond. Thanks for listening.